lot of you are thinking, what the heck is going on? Like, it's cool to come here and gather as men and have some fart jokes or whatever, but dude, the real reason I came to this Jesus camp is now in a different room. She's over there eating lunch, and I'm here. What have you done? Why have you done this to me, you idiot? There's a good reason why we're gathering together as men. There's a good reason for us to be together as a big church and hear a lot of amazing things, but it's very needed to separate and to gather as men. Because the reality is you as men are created unique by God to be men. You have masculine hearts, minds, and souls, and in a unique way reflect a unique aspect of who God is. And so we're going to spend the next few minutes leaning in to that reality, that specific understanding of what it means to be a man of God, to be a son of God. So dive in with me. Be present in this moment. You may be tempted to joke around with your friends, but I'm telling you right now, the person sitting next to you will never bring more to your life than the truth that God wants to bring to your masculine heart. So don't let him distract you. Lean in, lead in this moment as a man, and engage the truth of Christ that he wants us to hear. So we're going to be talking a lot about this idea of masculinity. But before we get into that, I want to show you a picture, and I want to know if you can tell me what's wrong with this picture. Someone from the sticks, huh? I was just like, nothing. It looks good to me. You've got to, shh. Hey, I'm going to teach you right now the existence of rhetorical questions. Those are the questions that are asked for you to think about, but not necessarily to yell out in response. When I want a response, you'll be very clear that I'm asking for a response, okay? It's a $100,000 sports car, Lamborghini, pulling a trailer with hay in it. If you know anything about cars, or if you have any interest in cars, or if you've seen a car, you probably look at that and you know that there's something gravely wrong with that image. Because that sports car was not designed to be a tractor. That sports car was not designed to tow a bunch of junk behind it. Using a sports car in this way fails to meet the reality, the purpose, the existence of why that car is there. And this image, I think, is one of the best ways for us to begin to understand masculinity. When we say the word masculinity, literally, there's a study of words called etymology, which means like the study of the history of words, like the parts of the words that make up the word. And if you dive into the history of the word masculinity, really what it means is something worthy of a man. Something that is worthy of a man. And what the word masculinity is referring to is the way you and I were created to exist. And that there is a worthy way, a worthy action, a worthy life that we can lead that aligns with the fact that we are men. But that it's also possible to live less than worthy of a man. To live less than our nature, to live less than how God made us to be. It's also possible to strap a trailer full of hay behind a Lamborghini. And in doing so, you're living less than why that car was made. So when we speak of masculinity, we're talking about aligning our lives with the worthiness of what it means to be a man. With what God made us to do and rising to that. And I bring this up because the word masculinity in our day and age is thrown out in a lot of different ways, and often, most often, not in a positive way. Usually, masculinity will be distorted as a problem, as an issue that needs to be solved. And we'll even have this phrase of toxic masculinity. But if we truly understand what masculinity is, living a life in a way that's worthy of our nature, worthy of being who God made us to be, worthy of being a man, then we'll come to find out that the phrase toxic masculinity is an oxymoron. Any of those actions that the world would describe as toxic masculinity are actually have nothing to do with masculinity. Masculinity is living in a way worthy of how God made you, worthy of the call of being a man, worthy of resembling something of his image. And every time we fail or we choose to live a lesser version of ourselves, that's what the world sees as toxic masculinity. But make it incredibly clear, your masculinity, as designed by God, as given to you by God, is not bad. Your masculinity is nothing you ever need to apologize for. It is a gift God has given you and given the world through you. Yes, you and I may need to apologize for the times we've failed to rise up to true masculinity. Absolutely, we've got to do that a lot. Apologize for our shortcomings, apologize for the way that we settle for less in our life, in our relationships, and how we treat people. But your masculinity, that's nothing you and I ever have to apologize for. It's how God made us. It's his imprint within us. And it's the demand of a great life. It's the standard of how we're supposed to live as men. It's the fulfillment of what it means to be a man, what it means to be a son of God. As we talk about this idea of masculinity and understanding that to be worthy of a man, the things that we should do because we are created in such a way. That Lamborghini should be racing around the streets. That Lamborghini should be pedaled to the floor 100 miles an hour. That Lamborghini should be hugging turns because it was created to do that. And to settle for anything less would be a misuse of that power, of that beauty, of that machine that is that Lamborghini. And you and I, in the same way, to settle for anything less than what is worthy of our nature is to settle for less than our masculinity, to settle for something other than God's vision of you as his son. And we do it. We mess up, we fall short, and God offers us mercy to restore that. But I want to dive into a little bit about what's at stake when you and I fail to know the goodness of our masculinity, and we fail to accept that goodness, and we fail to pursue that goodness. What will it cost us, and what will it cost this world? Your identity as men is not optional. Your identity as men is designed by God to reflect a certain aspect of who he is. And it's good. And if you and I as men are meant to reflect a certain aspect of who God is, right? We talked about it last night in Genesis chapter 1. God says, let us make mankind in our image and likeness. And then it says, male and female, he created them. That men and women uniquely bear some resemblance, some image of who God is. And together they present this more complete picture of who God is. And if one of those is missing, if one of those is distorted or hidden or confused, then the image of God will fail to be presented to this world and people will fail to see the Father. So your identity as a man is part of God's plan to reveal who he is to this world in a very unique way that only men can do. And the ladies too, in a very similar way, in only a unique way they can do. And sure, there's similarities and it's beautiful, but there are also particulars within our identity of men, as men. But our identity as men is under attack. Simply because it is so important. Society right now says your identity, your masculinity, your manhood, it's optional. It's malleable. It's whatever you want it to be. It's whatever you feel like. Now, let me be very clear. I am in no way condemning someone who may be walking through that journey. Not at all. I've got plenty of issues and distortions of how I see myself, and I'm letting Jesus gently lead me to the truth of who I am. And I want you to know, if you're in that place of journeying through that, trying to understand or make sense of your sonship, God loves you and he meets you there. Hold on to him and cling to him, because nothing will lead you to understand who you are more than that. The world, society, all the ideologies they'll throw at you will never satisfy your masculine heart, because they had nothing to do with creating it. Only the God of the universe will make sense of your heart and my heart, so we stay close to him. To say our identity as men is bound up in a reflection of God, bound up in being made in the image of God, comes with a lot of implications. Identity refers to this idea of oneness. What do we share a oneness with, a sameness with? And we as men share a very unique sameness with God. But because we are made in his image, it means that we are a reflection of who we know him to be. I need someone to help me out real quick. Do you mind helping me out real quick? You don't have to, but yeah, come on up real quick. What's your name? Grant. Don't worry, they'll turn it. It's like magic.
It is?
We have an amazing audiovisual team back there. They literally keep this whole thing going. Give it up for the AV team. They are phenomenal. I'm just gonna ask you some questions and you just answer, okay? Yeah. You're good. So what was your name again?
Grant.
Correct. Yes. Grant, I'm gonna turn my phone camera on here on selfie mode, okay? Okay. What I want you to do, Grant, is go ahead and walk down that aisle and maybe stop where that carpet is. You see where the carpet is?
Yeah.
Go ahead, head down there. There you go.
Oh, God.
All right, Grant. Shh. Grant, I'm not trying to confuse you or trick you. Just one direction is as if this was a mirror. It's on selfie mode, so it's kind of like a mirror, right? Grant, I want you from there to go ahead and you're only allowed to answer what you actually see, okay? Not what you know, because you're like, I know I'm wearing a blue shirt. Like, no. I'm gonna ask you questions about yourself. You can only answer what you actually see, okay? So Grant, I've got this mirror or this phone in selfie mode here. Grant, do me a favor, look into my phone. No. No, we're not trying to trick each other, Grant. We're friends, Grant, okay? Just follow along, Grant. Play along, okay?
Yes.
Or a kitten will die. I'm not saying I'm killing a kitten. I'm just saying somewhere in the world that's gonna happen, but whatever. So Grant, shh, stop it. I like cats with ketchup. All right, moving on. I'm just kidding, stop. Shh. Okay, Grant, only by looking, not up there, but directly from here to my phone, please describe to me what you see about yourself. Great answer, Grant.
I don't know.
Yeah, kind of difficult, right?
Yeah.
Kind of impossible. Grant, do me a favor. Take like 5 big steps forward. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, shh. Hey, gentlemen, it's not a huge feat that you counted to 5, okay? Shh, bunch of mathletes in the house, all right? Shh. Grant, by only looking at my phone, describe to me what you see about yourself. Still difficult, huh? You're squinting even. You're putting a lot of work in.
I have bad eyes, so this is gonna be hard.
Yeah, give me. Let's do 5 more big steps.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You guys are awesome. Grant, by only looking at my phone, describe to me what you see about yourself. Shh. All right. Shh. We get it. We see you, we hear you, you're special. Shh. Grant, I let you take like 15, let's do another 5 big steps.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, Grant, shh. Shh. Grant. What do we see about, okay, describe yourself to me, Grant. Still difficult?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, I'm being a jerk, I'm sorry. Come a little closer, base of the step. Shh, no more counting. Shh, stop. Shh. Describe to me what you see about yourself now. Do you see like a general blue orb? Yeah, that's you, Grant. Okay? You're a good-looking orb, but come closer. Shh. Grant, go ahead. Describe to me what you see about yourself now.
I have a beard. Okay. I have eyes.
Yep.
Okay, I'm doing good.
You're doing good. You're doing good.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay, so my hair is slicked over to the left.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a sick fade, dude. You're looking good, man. It's just high and tight. Go.
I still have braces on.
Nice. Dental care is on point.
Yes.
Do me a favor. This will be really hard. I don't know if you can see, but like, look, like just, what about now? Okay, we'll stop the analogy here. Give Grant a round of applause. Shh. Gentlemen, you and I, our masculinity, what it means to be a man, our identity as men, is forever contingent upon our reflection, our seeing, or our imaging of who God is. It will be impossible for you and I to ever know what a man is and to live worthy as a man if we are distant from God. The further we are from God, the more impossible it will be to know who we are and how we are to live. The further we are from God and His truth, the more susceptible we are to lies, distortion, and confusion about our identity as men. But the more we draw close to God the Father, the more we begin to see who He is and what He's like and what He says about humanity, the more we'll begin to know and understand and live as His sons. The reason there is so much confusion about masculinity in this world is because the world is trying to make sense of men apart from the God that they are made in reflection of. You and I are created far greater than we will understand, far greater than the world would have us believe. But the only way we will come to understand what it means to be a man, what it means to live worthy as a man, what it means to be a gift to this world as a man, is if we draw close to the God who made us and allow Him to speak truth about our identity. This is going to be the pinnacle aspect of your journey as a Catholic Christian man. And it starts now, and it will continue every step of this life. And it's so important that we take that journey, because if you and I refuse to live worthy as the men we were created, society will suffer. Society suffers when men refuse to be men. One example, abortion. Abortion would not exist if men lived worthy as a man. If men lived to the call of their identity. Because at that standard of what true masculinity is, we would know that a woman is not a tool at our disposal. We would know the beauty and gift of our sexuality and the life it can bring. And we certainly would see the value in another human being, regardless of how small they are. And we would stand for the dignity of that life against a world that would seek to destroy it. Take the sex trade industry. Predominantly millions of women trafficked across this globe. That would not exist if men were living to the call of men. Or let's go a little bit closer to home. Statistically right now, 1 in 4 children are growing up in a home without some sort of father figure, without a biological, step, or adoptive father. Statistically, those children are at a 4 times greater risk of destructive poverty. They're more likely to have behavioral problems. They're more likely to go to prison. 85% of young people incarcerated come from fatherless homes. They're 7 times more likely to get someone pregnant or to become pregnant for those who come from a fatherless home. They're more likely to face abuse, neglect, abuse drugs and alcohol. They're 2 times more likely to drop out of school. And the statistics sadly go on and on and on. And I know right now, I want to be very clear about this. Some of us in this room are that 1 in 4. And I want to say to you, it's not your fault. It is never your fault that another man, for whatever reason, failed to see the beauty and dignity of his calling to be present in your life. And the other thing I want to say is these statistics, they are observations of what has happened, but they are not predictions of what has to happen. So if you find yourself without that father in your life, physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally present in your life, know right now that it is not your fault. It is an injustice done to you, but you have a God in heaven who will more than compensate for anything your earthly father failed to provide for you. It doesn't have to continue with you. Whatever caused a man in your life to fail to live up to the worthiness of being a man does not have to live on in you. Right now in this moment, the Father in heaven says, I will father you. I will teach you who you are as a son. I will teach you what it means to be a man. I will teach you the gift of your masculinity and how you give it to this world to bring life. And so I very specifically want to urge you, if you are that number 1 in 4, for whatever reason, know right now that God's grace is more powerful than any insufficient situation you may find yourself in. All the more reason to draw near to the Father so that he can teach you to be a son, so that he can, through you, break these statistics. Anywhere a man refuses to be a man, society suffers. And this is why masculinity is under attack, because masculinity is a good thing for society. As destructive as a fatherless home has the potential to be, what about a society that is lacking men and what they're meant to bring to it? Your masculinity is the solution to so many of these world's problems. And I believe that's why it's under attack. Because the enemy, evil, knows the power and the goodness built within your existence as a man. He knows the good that you are capable of bringing to this world. He knows the aspect of God you are meant to reveal to this world so that they would have hope, so that they would have life. And he will do anything he can to confuse you about who you are so that the world will fail to see what God wants to show through you. And some of the ways he confuses us, he convinces us that to be a man, you've got to be self-sufficient. So many men are burdened by pride. We don't have the ability to lay down and say we're broken, we're hurting, we're in need. And this is why this weekend is such a great opportunity, because you and I get to go to the sacrament of reconciliation and lay down our pride and say, I am a son of God, but I don't have it together. I need a father to father me. I need a father to embrace me, to restore me. I am not self-sufficient. I am a dependent child upon a generous God. Or the world would maybe teach us that men are supposed to be apathetic. Apathetic means you don't care. And some of you in this moment may find a great deal of apathy. The root word of apathetic actually means passionless existence. How easy is it to get caught up in our hobbies, in our social media, in our video games, or our sports, or whatever it may be? Not that any of those in and by themselves are bad, but how easy is it to wrap our lives around those things and become apathetic to our calling to love those around us, our calling to grow in holiness, our calling to become men that can contribute to this world, our calling to reflect who God is in and among this world. The other two ways the enemy would have us fail or fall short of our masculinity is in the pursuit of power. Whatever that means to you. It could be your need to have a social media following. It could be your need to be the guy on the team that everyone respects. It could be your need to have a lot of money, or to have a certain car, or to have a certain career, or a certain degree. We place our hope and power in so many different areas. And let me tell you, there's nothing wrong inherently with the idea of power. In fact, that's one of the gifts God has given you as men. In a very unique way, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, you have a power that women do not have. They have different power, but we are unique in what God has given us. Power in itself is not necessarily the problem. It's power put in service to our selfish desires. Power is meant to be laid in the service of love, not meant to simply build ourselves up to amass more things or to make other people feel worse and make us feel mighty. The other thing I'll point out where we find a lack of our masculinity is in the pursuit of pleasure. Sex, whatever form, whatever distortion, whatever it may be. A relationship, pornography, masturbation, whatever it may be. There is nothing inherently evil or wrong about sex. God designed sex, but he designed it for a purpose. And that purpose is the union of man and wife and the creation of new life. And anything that would fall out of that category would be failing to live as men. Anything less than that would be simply us using someone to get a few moments of our own selfish pleasure. And the fact is, men, you are called to so much more than a few moments of selfish pleasure. You are called with your strength, with your sexuality, with all of your abilities to live courageously, to live fearlessly, in contradiction to the ways of the world, to lay your life down for another. So those are some of the distortions, some of the lies of how the enemy would cause us to shrink back from masculinity. I want to point out 3 things that your masculinity is really created for. These 3 things are to create, to cultivate, and to protect. Say that with me. Create, cultivate, protect. Now say it as if it actually matters. Create, cultivate, protect. These are 3 things that you as men uniquely can contribute to your families and to society. And if you and I refuse to live into these 3 areas, people will suffer. People will hurt. People will miss the revelation of God that we are meant to be to them. We are called to create life. And yes, in a very unique way within a marriage, which most of you will be called to. But we're also called to create this idea of a life-affirming culture around us, to actually contribute to society, to leave it better than we found it. We're called to cultivate. That means to work, to build up the culture. Very specifically, we're called to create as men who would marry a woman, to create children. We have to raise a child, to cultivate that, to understand the responsibility of what creating means. But we're also called to cultivate the culture, to cultivate our schools, to cultivate our workplaces, to cultivate our teams. And that means to work hard for the goodness of God in those places. To not embrace laziness, complacency, or convenience, but to understand that you have a strength meant to be given to that moment. And that if you refuse to give it, that moment will lack because you are not present in it. The last one, protect. Create life, you raise life, and then you lay your life down for that life. Protect. Right now, in your society, you are called to protect the dignity of life, to protect the dignity of women, to protect the dignity of the truth of God about his sons and daughters, to protect the dignity of sexuality, to protect the dignity of all that Scripture would reveal to us. And that's going to take courage, because society does not take kindly to people who contradict it. And this is why Jesus was crucified. You don't get crucified because everyone agrees with you. As men, we have a unique ability to stand up courageously against the lies of the world, against the actions of the world. And if it means to lay down our life, so be it. It may not be physically, but it certainly will be socially. For you to stand up for the dignity of a girl in your school will cause your friends to mock you and ridicule you. And that is a martyrdom, that is a laying down of your life, but you're doing it to protect the dignity of the life God has given her. Men, you have a unique strength to cultivate, create, and protect. And if you and I fail to live to this call that is worthy of our identity, if we fail to cultivate, to create, and protect, society will suffer. I want to close with 2 distinct images. We talked yesterday about Adam and Eve. The conversation the serpent had with Eve. The scriptures use the word serpent, but the original Hebrew for the word serpent is nahash. And that doesn't necessarily translate to a little snake. It translates to Leviathan, a giant dragon-like beast. A giant dragon-like monster approaches Eve and begins to lie to her heart about her identity. Where is Adam when this is happening? You want to know where Adam is? She took some of its fruit and ate it. And she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. this monster comes to sever the relationship between Eve and God, to lie to her about who he is and to lie to her about her dignity, beauty, and identity. And where is the man that has been trusted to care for her? He's standing right beside her, silently in his cowardice, letting this happen. This is probably the most accurate picture of what society expects from you as men. To sit silently on the sidelines as Satan destroys the reality of God's creation. We don't have to be Adam anymore. Because 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ came and stepped into the lies, into the mess, and demonstrated what manhood looks like. In particular, I think about this moment where this woman was caught in adultery. You may remember that scripture. She was caught in adultery and they were about to stone her to death. The men had gathered around, probably the same men that committed adultery with her. I mean, after all, adultery is not a one-person sin. And yet these men in their cowardice were going to condemn and kill the woman. And they have stone in hand ready to kill her. And what does Jesus do? Jesus steps in between society and the woman. And he kneels down and he begins to write in the sand. Theologians speculate that Jesus was writing the truth of every single one of their sins in that moment. He would look up and see a Pharisee and write the sin. He would look up and see this man with stone in hand and write his sin. And then he stands up and he says, let he who is without sin throw the first stone. And one by one, they drop the stones and they walk away because they're guilty for failing to rise to the call of their manhood. And then Jesus bends down to this woman, broken, abused, and abandoned by men. He picks her up and he looks her in the eyes. He says, go and sin no more. When Adam failed to intervene between evil and Eve, Jesus intervened between evil and the woman. He gave the example and he gives us his grace so that we can do the same. But the reality is it's going to be very difficult. So we need to depend on each other. We need support. No man is an island. Brothers in arms is the best way to win a battle. And so what we're gonna do in this closing few moments here is we're gonna pray with each other. Oh, crap, that sounds holy. Get over yourself. You are much better than you think you are. You are much more powerful than you think you are. Don't accept cowardice when you're called to greatness.